All right, let's get right into it. We're about to peel back a layer of history you were definitely never taught in school. This is a story about mathematics, sure, but it's also a story about secret societies, knowledge so powerful it was considered forbidden, and a truth that someone, somewhere, tried very hard to bury. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. What if the very rules we use to build our modern world, everything from bridges to the algorithms on your phone, what if all of that started not in a sterile classroom, but as part of a secret mystical tradition, a tradition that was intentionally hidden from the rest of us? And that's exactly why we're doing this. We see this whole explainer as a kind of intellectual salvage mission. The mission is simple. We're going to go digging through the forgotten corners of history, find a radical idea that's been tossed aside, and figure out exactly why it was pushed into the shadows in the first place. And here's the key, right? This isn't a philosophy that just kind of fell out of fashion. No, this was different. The Pythagorean worldview was actively fought against. It was hidden, attacked, and suppressed by the powers that be. Why? Because it was considered just too dangerous for people to know. So what was this incredibly dangerous idea? Let's get to the heart of what the Pythagoreans actually believed. And you know what? It really all boils down to three simple words. All is number. For you and me, that might sound like a neat little phrase. But for them, this was everything. This was the fundamental truth of all existence. It was their sacred creed. See, for the Pythagoreans, math wasn't just a tool you used to, measure a block of wood. No way. For them, it was the divine language that the universe was written in. They saw numbers in the harmony of music, in the orbits of the planets. They truly believed that if you could just understand numbers deeply enough, you could understand the very mind of the Creator. And this is where it all changes. Math stops being a boring subject in school and becomes, it becomes a spiritual key. It's a sacred practice that unlocks the very architecture of reality. It's more than just science. It's a powerful, almost magical form of forbidden knowledge. So you have to ask, right? If their ideas were so incredible, why aren't we all studying in Pythagorean temples today? Well, the answer is kind of tragic. Their philosophy actually contained the seeds of its own destruction. Let's take a look at how it all fell apart. And this is the central question we have to investigate. I mean, it's one thing for an idea to lose a debate or become unpopular. It is a whole other thing for that idea to be physically, violently stamped out and scrubbed from the history books. And this chart just lays out the conflict so perfectly. On one side, you've got this Pythagorean sect, super secretive, a really strict internal hierarchy, and quietly becoming more and more powerful in politics. And on the other side, you have the Greek city-states, which were all about public authority, open debate, and civic processes. It was an absolute clash of cultures, a shadow organization going up against the establishment. And that's where everything flipped. The local government stopped seeing them as this, quirky group of thinkers. They started to see a secret society with its own laws, its own agenda, and its own growing power. And they didn't see that as a search for truth. They saw it as a political conspiracy to take over. And, when a government feels threatened, it doesn't really want to have a friendly debate. It acts. And this is what led to the final, violent and tragic chapter in the Pythagorean story, the Purge. Just look how quickly this all went down. Around 500 BCE, they're at the top of their game, incredibly influential. Just 40 years later, that influence has turned into suspicion and rivalry. By 450 BCE, that suspicion explodes into actual violence. And then, just 10 years after that, their schools and meeting places are being physically destroyed. It was an incredibly swift and brutal collapse. And we have to be clear, this wasn't just some random riot that got out of hand. Oh no, this was a systematic campaign. The goal wasn't just to beat the Pythagoreans in an argument, it was to completely erase them, to literally scrub their forbidden influence from the official history of the world. So, okay, we've salvaged the story from the ashes of history. But this is more than just a cool ancient tale of politics and philosophy. Why does any of this actually matter to us, right here, right now? Well, I think there are a few really big takeaways here. First, history isn't just a record of what happened, it's a story told by the winners. Second, when a new idea comes along that challenges the people in charge, it doesn't just get debated. It often gets labeled as dangerous or forbidden as a way to shut it down. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, The line between a respected philosophy, a groundbreaking science, and a feared cult, well, that line is often drawn by politics, not by truth. So yeah, we've pulled this story back from the brink of being forgotten. And I think it's a really powerful reminder that everything we think we know as fact has come to us through a filter created by centuries of power, politics, and sometimes just plain fear. And that really just leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling question. If a concept as fundamental as the mystical origins of mathematics could be intentionally buried for centuries, what other ideas, what other incredible knowledge is still out there, just waiting in the shadows for someone to come along on their own salvage mission?